You're listening to the HR Mixtape, your podcast with the perfect mix of practical advice, thought-provoking interviews, and stories that just hit different so that work doesn't have to feel, well, like work. Now, your host, Sherry Simpson.
Joining me today is Steve Cadigan, LinkedIn's first Chief HR Officer and founder of Cadigan Talent Ventures. A leading voice on the future of work, Steve helps companies navigate digital transformation, culture shifts, and the evolving world of talent. Steve, thank you so much for jumping on the podcast with me today.
Excited to be here, Sherry.
So I love this topic of the modern workforce, how things are changing, different generations coming in. I've talked about it on the podcast before, but I'd love to get your perspective on this concept of career loyalty and what that looks like now in the modern workforce.
Well, one of the really interesting data points when we look at the workforce is we've got more fluidity in the world of work than ever before. More people changing companies, more people staying for shorter periods of time, more people changing industries. And that for me sort of suggests that maybe the contract is changing and that we should, instead of offering job security in a world where there's just so many choices where places and people and industries people can work, and more new industries today than any time in history, maybe instead of focusing and over-focusing on what we did in the past, which is job security and retention, we should focus on career security, which is just making people better for an uncertain future. Because more companies are also having to lay people off and cut costs and face this challenge of how do I leverage AI and how's it going to impact my workforce. So I don't think that promise of long tenure is what it used to be. And that's nobody's fault. But I do think that's how I'm encouraging leaders to say, a bigger promise than job security, offer career security, just make people better. And that's what I think is I think it's going to get you to attract the best people, because they're going to say, in an uncertain world where new skills are needed faster than any time in history, I want to be somewhere where people are giving me those new skills.
Yeah. How do you have that conversation with business leaders then, making that shift from like that traditional view of retention, that metric that we use in HR, engagement, right? Those are kind of two big metrics we look at, to this new mindset where we're more focused on skills, we're more focused on that development, which does mean that, like you said, our workforce will be more fluid. So we might have somebody that we put through an amazing program or we give them a lot of opportunities, and they're gone in 2.5 years or they're gone in 3 years. What are we saying to our C-suite as to how that's going to impact the business outcomes that they're looking for?
I think we can look to the world of sports for some great lessons. Number one, in the world of college athletics, the best athletes only stay 1 year now. And you used to have 3 years to build a culture, to build team, build muscle memory, build trust, build confidence. And in organizations where the median tenure for 20 to 35-year-olds is around 2.5 years today across the United States, 2.5 is the median, which means half of that is less. I think what that means for C-suite is, let's not have jobs that take 2 years for someone to understand. Let's have rapid onboarding. Let's have jobs that people can jump into. Let's not look at programs for talent development. Let's look at on-the-job experiences and new challenges and new opportunities. So in the job, they're delivering value, but they're also taking on new tasks so that if the winds shift in terms of our business focus, our market focus, we've got people who can pick it up, and we don't have months and months trying to fill a requisition that's a really impossible skill set to find. So that's how I'm having them think about it. Like, listen, what can we learn from the best coaches and the best sports teams in America? They're always recruiting. They're onboarding people really, really fast. And they're looking for teamwork to start from day one, not after year one, And that's not something most businesses were built for, right? The architecture work is the longer we're together, the more successful we can be. And the good news is we've got more and more examples of incredible companies building phenomenal value with decreasing tenure. So the top 5 fastest growing companies in the world right now are averaging below 4 years tenure right now. And so they're not winning because of all those 30-year, dinners with the anniversaries of the people who've been there forever. They're winning because they're recognizing new ideas and new perspectives. In HR, we call that a word that used to be cool, and now it's sort of like verboten. We call that diversity. Lots of people with lots of different experiences from lots of different places makes you better in an unpredictable world. And so it's not to be feared to have all these new people.
So I'm gonna stick with the sports analogy. I'm a baseball girl at heart. So, in that analogy, they've got an entire farm system where those skills are being built and some of those things are being taught. If you're hiring for rapid onboarding, rapid into the roles, who's now taking on kind of that skills development responsibility? Are you looking at maybe colleges or universities to tap into more frequently, or are you looking for maybe we do need to have a pipeline program internally?
Sure. That is, let's just take a moment. That is a phenomenal question, right? If we're needing new skills faster than ever before, if people are leaving companies sooner than ever before, how are we going to thrive and create value? And who owns that? Government, education institutions, or businesses, right? Those are the three constituents, the three main stakeholders. Well, let's look at business. What's the first organization to let go when a company goes through a downturn? It's the learning and development team. Not sure why, but that's a decision a lot of people make. Maybe that learning stuff's a little bit extra, but when we need new skills, we're going to go buy it on the open market. How's that working out for you? It's not working out so well. And governments, I think, are sort of on their heels now. They're still trying to figure out what the internet is. And then educational institutions are going to business leaders saying, what business skills do you need? And business is saying, hey, we'll get back to you. We're not really sure right now. And so what I think it's an ecosystem. I'm seeing the companies that are thriving with rapid learning and skill development are ones that are building deeper ecosystems with universities. Not just, hey, can you send us some students for internships? It's like, can you bring your professors in here? Can we bring our leaders to teach classes, to get exposure to your talent, to give your students problems to solve? Can we use that relationship more actively? And I think that's got to be the future. No company is built right now to develop people as fast as all the skills that they need. It's just not. Nor is every company equipped to hire all the new skills at the pace that we need the new skills. So it's going to have to be a blend. And this is really an uncomfortable moment, Sherry, because most business models were not built for this. Most companies were not built to ramp up their people as fast as they need, because I need you to develop a product. I need you to, deliver X number of widgets, right? I don't have built in 20%, 30%, 40% of your time is learning new things and taking on new challenges. And until we get that model right, I think it's going to have to be an ecosystem play. It's really hard.
You gave a really good example there of what HR professionals can do right now in partnering with their local universities. I loved the example of not just, hey, how do we leverage, professors, but can we bring some of our business leaders in, do a module in a business development class or an intro to business class and solve a real world problem. That's an amazing idea to walk away from this conversation if you're listening. What are some other practical things that, HR can do right now to start making this transition to, really future-proof their talent strategy?
Yeah, I think here's a big one. I think we're going to have to start recognizing another really uncomfortable truth, that what you know is increasingly less important than what you can learn. What you can learn is more important. So I think as HR professionals, as leaders, we need to start coaching our hiring managers and our C-suite to say, hey, we know our business is going to continue to change faster than ever before. We're going to enter new markets. We're going to need new skills. Let's try to make sure we're hiring people that have high learning velocity, that have high curiosity, that can demonstrate to us that we can see a pattern of them adopting new skills and challenging themselves. I don't know. One of the things that I look for when I'm helping organizations figure this out is, are the people you're hiring, have they lived in different cultures and countries? Have they learned new languages? Have they been through some, changes in their life that force them to adapt? That's what we're solving for right now. And that's so different than what we're solving for in the past, Sherry, which is, I want you to do the same thing forever. And you can't even think of applying for another job until you've crushed this for 5 years. And that's just not going to work today, because when I look inside a company, I don't see a lot of opportunity. But when I look outside, thank you, internet, there's so much more transparency to other things I could do. I'm going to go do that. There's so much more green grass. So if you want loyalty, I say that you've got to be aware that talent's loyal to learning right now. They're not loyal to your company. If your company's offering learning, they're going to be loyal to you. But that's what I mean. It's starting back to the beginning part of our conversation. The companies that offer career security, more learning, more growth and development are going to get the best people, finding them. That's how you solve recruiting. That's how we solve recruiting at LinkedIn. When we exploded from basically a few hundred employees to 4,000 employees in under 4 years, we did that because we created a place where the best people found us. not because we were masters of some recruiting ninja, black belt art form. Is because it's a very simple truth. Become a place the best people want to be. And I think this notion of career experiences and new learnings is really powerful. And let me leave the audience with another sort of question for them to ask themselves. Ask yourself and ask your leaders, when is the greatest breakthrough moment that you've had in your career? Has it been when you've been in the same job family 4, 5, 6 years? Or was it when someone tapped you on the shoulder and said, I got something new for you? And you said, oh crap, I don't think I can do that. I don't think I'm ready. And they said, yes, I think you are. And then you crushed it and you came home with so much energy and so much career joy. But the problem for us is we've designed to disable that from happening. But most of us had those breakthrough career moments where someone who believed in us put us in a real stretch assignment. And we're going to have to do that more frequently if we want people to feel more a part of recognizing we're going to have to grow and develop people. And those are the kind of conversations I think are really going to have to change.
How do we bring that to our leadership team? And I don't mean the C-suite. I mean that middle manager group. Every year we look at, the top 5 trends for HR this year. Every single year, leadership development is on that list. We have not mastered it. And I'm amazed, every role that I've had in HR, every organization I've stepped into, one of the first 90 days that they, in your first 90 days is like, hey, we need a leadership development program. Hey, we need a management essentials. Hey, we need, this type of training. What does this look like now for this group? Because, we're already kind of on our heels trying to get our managers up to speed on like the basics of management. And now we want them to think kind of differently about developing employees, differently about things like discretionary effort, different about learning and curiosity and risk and those kinds of things.
Yeah, right. I mean, just what leaders want to hear. We're going to put more on your plate. We're going to change the recipe for you. They're just so excited, right? I remember back in the days of manager self-reliance, and one manager came up to me and said, Steve, you know what I hear when I hear manager self-reliance? More work for me. And I thought, thank you. Thank you for being so honest. Listen, this is a really hard moment. And I'm really sad to my core that the pace that we're putting most organizations under and the rate of change is taking our eye off the fact that leadership's really, really important. And I had a sort of a theory on this coming out of the pandemic, that the length of time that organizations were, because I'm living in Silicon Valley mostly and working with a lot of technology companies, that most leaders were thinking, we're going to build this, we're going to sell it, we're going to get acquired, or we're going to die within 10 years. So why would I build leaders, right? And as an American business community, and I'll ask the listeners another hard question to answer, get your friends together, leaders at lunch, HR team, whatever, and ask yourself, what company is building the best next generation of leaders today? Who do you want to go poach so that you're finding great leaders? Because if you're not taking the time to develop them, you might as well go try to raid the closet of the people who are. And the answer usually is, I'm going to have to think about that. And that, in the early days, right, it was, GE, of course, Crotonville, Jack Welch, Ram Charan, all these incredible people. And now it's like, I don't know. And when I left LinkedIn, that's the challenge I gave my CEO as I departed. I said, I think your bar to be the greatest leader that Silicon Valley's ever seen is that the next generation of successful companies hired your former employees. That people, whoa, you got a LinkedIn executive? Holy cow. Every time those people come in, the way they think, the way they build culture, their leadership style is off the charts. And I just don't think we even have a few companies to think of there. And then let me reverse the thought track on this question, because it's a great one. Why does it happen? Because people are dumb, they're not developing leaders? I don't think so. How many companies do you know today that are really convincing you they're building to be around in 100 years? Like, think about that, right? That's a pretty short list. You're probably like, oh, well, Amazon. Oh, sure. Starbucks. Okay, yeah. Microsoft. But those are the big giants, right? Like, who else is really starting off building, saying we're going to be around? And I think that's because, Sherry, the world's changing so fast. Like, how can I think I would be so bold that my company's going to be around in 20 years, let alone 100? Because things are changing so fast. And I remember sitting at the outside the office of Reid Hoffman, the chairman and founder of LinkedIn, one time, and he was asked, hey, who's your biggest competitor? And his answer kind of reveals how hard this is. He said, my competitor is a company that hasn't been founded yet. Someone's going to come up with a new paradigm. It's going to take my business model out, right? Look at what Uber's done. Look at what Airbnb's done. Look at what Tesla's done. A new business model has completely disrupted a legacy business. Look at a lot of the fintech, right? Look at a lot of the banks that have been, taken over by some things that, Apple Wallet and Apple Pay and the credit card industry, right? So it's like that is causing, I think, taking people's eye off the ball and not thinking like, hey, great leadership's going to get us through this. It's like, no, we got to go shift the strategy and they're chasing the fires that we have today. That's why I think it's too easy to go, a bunch of lazy senior executives, they're not investing in leadership. I think they're really distracted and they're really under attack from too many fronts right now. And the world's changing so fast. I think, it's a disappointment for me, right? And I think just like you, I'll yell this from the hilltops until someone will start listening. But I think that pace is a tough competition for us.
Well, and then you add in the complexities of different leaders having different views on makeup of your workforce, either fluid or hybrid or fully on-site or global or not global. I'm consistently amazed at, mandates either way or expectations either way that aren't focused on research, that aren't focused on, what can our employee population actually produce in these different environments? How do you bring in this more resilient idea of developing your workforce so it doesn't matter what, paradigm you're in, you're still meeting your business objectives?
Yeah. I think I'll go back to some of the pillars that I mentioned earlier. I think talent is increasingly loyal to learning. So that's really important. If you want great people, you need to invest in them. I think a lot of our leaders love coaching and developing and mentoring a lot more than we give them credit for. And I think that for me personally, that's one of the greatest joys of my career is looking at the people that I've hired and developed and watching them, butterfly, fly away. And it's a beautiful thing. I also think that we can learn something from the management consulting industry whose talent strategy is come here and then please get a better job. And the better the job you get, maybe the more likely we've got more business with you in the future. Maybe you're a business development angel. Maybe it's going to be easier for me to recruit because I can show that someone who came here and got a better job is going to be you. You're going to be next and you're going to grow. And that's goodwill, good ecosystem. And it takes us out of the, we have to do it all ourselves. I mentioned earlier that I think for development, we're going to have to think in an ecosystem mindset. It's a big part of the book I published a few years ago, Workquake, which is the last chapter, which is I think the future of business is going to have to be ecosystems because we can't do all the stuff that we need to do as fast as we do. And so if I don't have to hire everyone and control everyone, but I can leverage relationships and partnerships, that's going to allow me to access new markets, access talent, and access opportunity a lot faster. And that is out of the command and control. And so the people who high command and control, that's really uncomfortable, right? The intellectual property lawyer is like, whoa, people are going to be touching this and they didn't sign the NDA. I'm like, yeah, but they're already touching it, not signing an NDA. So let's lean in. The greatest environment of creativity and innovation on the planet. I'm not here to sell it. I'm not here to tell you it's the be all end all, but I don't think anyone can argue that Silicon Valley has produced more market leading technology or market leading companies or market value creation than anywhere in the world. It's got the highest turnover of any geography in the world. So what's going on? I think what's going on is ideas are moving really, really quickly. And people, when they move companies, I met a good product person, I met a good engineering person, I met a good HR person, I met a good lawyer. So when my idea hits me, I'm good to go. And in a world where people aren't moving, they don't have those relationships to move and build really fast. And I think there's something to learn there. We got to lean in and recognize increasingly the companies that are really thriving now are not the ones that are containing everything themselves. They're hiring new people and they're moving people that used to be there out to other places, not, taking the Tony Soprano school of HR, which is you quit, you're dead to me, but you quit, great. We're going to be even closer friends now that you're at a company that we want to do business with,
Yeah. Well, and the leadership and learning development in general, that concept, that move to an organization that has more of that built in aligns with what I'm seeing coming out of Gen Z into the workforce, is exactly the type of environment that they're looking for. And so that transition is happening, right at the most important time for that generation coming in. I'm really excited to see what the future looks like for that. So I guess, as we wrap up our conversation, which I feel like we could talk for hours and hours, what's one skill that's probably like too narrow, but one skill that you believe every HR professional should should learn right now to prepare them for not even the next 5 years, the next 2.5 years?
Stop playing defense and fighting for retention. Start playing offense and fight for a beautiful, skilled, diverse workforce. And expect that people are not going to stay 10 years. Expect it. I've been talking about this for 5 years plus. I'm like, do you think people are going to stay in companies longer in the future? Because the trend is they're leaving. Do you think they're going to stay longer? No. Okay. Have you adjusted your strategy to expect that to happen? And the answer is no, because my bonus, my rewards, every one of my benefits is all indexed off of you staying longer. More RO, more 401k match, more vacation. I was like, so let's re-architect that and shift it towards learning and development. Let's expect that people aren't going to stay long. And so we're not caught on our heels when Sarah left and she's the only one that knows how to do X, Y, Z, right? And so I think that's, it's a big mindset shift. But once you start accepting that and expecting it, I think the rest of your strategy is going to feel less like you're going against the wind.
Steve, such great advice for the HR community and business leaders listening. So thanks for sitting down with me today.
Yeah, it's great to be here, Sherry. Let's plan a redux of this and part 2 sometime a few months down the road because the world's changing that fast.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. You can find show notes and links at thehrmixtape.com. Come back often and please subscribe, rate, and review.